Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today for putting your action plan to work. My name is Dave Charest, and I'm the Director of Content Marketing at Constant Contact. And today we're doing something a little bit different. If you've joined us for a webinar in the past, you know we usually have some pretty designed slides for you and a well kind of formatted type of thing for you to look at. But today we thought it would be apropos to have more of an open conversation, and I'm joined by some experts here, Mr. Matthew Montoya and Jenna Schaefer, who you should be seeing on the screen there. Thank you guys for joining us today. And really, we wanted to share some information with you guys, and then really be here to take your questions, because I know a lot of us are going through a kind of an unprecedented time at this moment. And we just wanted to be here for you and answer those questions you may have about marketing your business during this time. So as we're talking and discussing things, do feel free to send in your questions. There should be a questions menu over on the right-hand side of your screen where you can send those in. We'll do our best to answer those as we can. And we also have some people working in the background, so they'll be helping you out if you have any other issues or things like that. So to start us off today, I kind of wanted to share a story. I was talking with a friend of mine who owns a business, and we were speaking the other day when all of this has been happening. And he said to me, there's a lot of tension in my shoulders right now. He's got a lot of people depending on him, between his family, his employees, the vendors that he works with, and the community. And really, he's just looking to do the best he can in this particular situation. And luckily, he's in the food service industry in the sense that he can actually still have his business going and do some things. But there's always that kind of nagging question that's going on in the back of his mind, because he's trying to keep people employed as long as possible, and keep things open for the community and do all of that. But there's always that nagging question, am I doing the right thing? Right. And I think a lot of us are probably going through some of those same things at this particular moment. And your situation is obviously unique to what your particular business is, but this is a great time as both just people and a community to really understand and recognize that we're all in this together. And some of the best things that we can do right now is think about those ways that we can kind of support each other and work through this. And if you're here today, I think what's really great about that is I think what it means and signals to me, and I think probably to both of us or all of us, is that if you're here today, it means you're really ready to tap into that business owner resiliency that we've seen so often from small business owners like yourselves. And so really our goal today here is to start you thinking about getting an action plan together, right? And so what we're going to talk about is really like taking stock of your current situation and what's happening in the world right now. We're going to talk about thinking about some ways to start generating solutions, and then some ways to think about taking action. And then, of course, as I mentioned, we're going to take your questions here for the majority of our time. So with that, I wanted to formally introduce Jenna Schaefer and Matt Montoya. Now, fun fact before I have you guys kind of step in and introduce yourselves is that Matt and I think we started working at Constant Contact around the same time, which I guess September will be 9 years for us. So, and if you think that's a long time, Jenna's been actually here longer than that, because Jenna was our training operator when we kind of got started, and it was
Are you calling me old, Dave?
Yeah. Not at all, not at all. Just, well, in tech years, I guess we are kind of old, right? I mean, we've been with the company for a long time, and so these are two great colleagues that have lots of expertise to share with you here today, and I'm grateful for the opportunity and to have some discussion with you here today and have you with us. So thank you for being here. Maybe Jenna, I'll have you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do, and then Matt after that.
Yeah, so I'm Jenna Schaefer. As Dave mentioned, I've been with Constant Contact for quite a while. It's like 11 and a half years, I think, at this point. So I know it's crazy. I've been in lots of different roles within the company, but most currently I am a programs marketing manager. So I manage some more specific programs for our national organizations, like Chambers of Commerce, SCORE, SBC centers, United Ways. So if you work with any of those people or those partners, I specifically work with them.
Excellent. Matt, how about you?
Well, as Dave said, I've been with Constant Contact for 9 years, coming up on 9 years. I've had, as Jenna just said as well, I've had a lot of jobs at Constant Contact. My first 5 years at Constant Contact, though, were some of my favorite because I got the opportunity to crisscross the country and actually go to a couple of countries and teach small businesses and nonprofits in person. So I've had the opportunity to meet almost 10,000 small businesses in person, and I don't want to sound cliche here, but it's really inspiring to meet so many small business people and nonprofits face to face and in person and hear their stories and hear their challenges. Um, I'm currently channel marketing and enablement manager for the indirect side of the business. So in Constant Contact, that would include people like what we our partners that provide services like graphic designers, web developers, marketing experts that help small businesses locally. I also help support our franchise partners. These would be organizations that are under a franchise, and our integration partners. And those are going to be people that come to us by using another kind of integration, and they use Constant Contact integrated with whatever solution they're using.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys
I'm
both.
also
Oh,
Dave Charest stunt double. I don't think
so
people know
so
that.
you stole my thunder there, Matt. I was just gonna mention that. So both Matt and I have, again, as Matt was saying, the opportunity to travel a lot and speak to small businesses in previous years, and we have oft been mistaken for each other. And this is actually the first time we've been together, right? Like
Yeah, this
on
is
the
the first time
screen.
we've
So
presented at the same time.
so we are not the same person. You're witnessing it here for the first time. So excellent. One thing I wanted to mention before we kind of get into the meat of what we're talking about here today is that for those of you on the line who don't know at the moment, Constant Contact, many of us here have been here means everywhere now because we're all working from home. But um, one of the things that we've been hard at work putting together is a small business support kit. And I'm going to ask the folks in the background there if you could please share that link out to people to check this out. It offers guidance, new ways to boost business, inspiration from other small businesses to kind of help you figure out what to do next. And there also includes some discounts on services and access to free tools for new and current customers as well. So be sure to check that out. A lot of what we'll be talking about here, that you'll find some action plans that you can access from that page as well, that you can go, and we have maybe about 6 industries up there right now. We're working on more of those, so check back there often, but do check those out and check out those resources that we've put together for you. So the other big thing I just wanted to mention is during this time, of course, this is a period of high tension for everyone. There's lots of uncertainty and unprecedented, right? Like as we said, and we're not really sure, where this is going to end up and what's going on. But hopeful things, as they typically do, come around. And so, but one of the things I wanted to mention is that it's really important to, make sure you're taking care of yourself. Self-care is really important during these times, particularly where you don't have that. If you're working from home and you don't have that kind of work, you're at work and then you come home and there's no distinction between what's happening where. It's really important to make sure you're taking breaks, take care of yourself. If you need to, take some moments and meditate and do some purposeful breathing, those types of things. Also consider limiting your news consumption as things are going on here, and make sure you're doing all that you can, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to do video here today, is so you can see us, right? And so we can have some interaction here today. And so make sure that you're doing all that you can to keep in touch with friends and family during this time through video calls and things like that. The other thing I wanted to mention is and we'll go light on this stuff as we get into it here, but the other big thing here to remember is, as you're running your business and doing what you're doing, of course, your individual cases may vary, but really, do all that you can to prioritize safety during these times for yourself, your family, your employees, and your community, of course, right? So hopefully you're in situations where you can have people work from home if that's necessary, making sure that you're emphasizing the importance of, cough and sneeze etiquette, all of that, and make sure you're doing what you can to perform that regular environmental cleaning as well. So with that said, let's get into our first section here, where we really want to talk about this idea of taking stock of your situation. And so this is this period of time where you really want to say, like, what's happening right now? What is that? What does that mean? What does this current state of affairs mean for your business? And this is kind of where we ask those what ifs. And Matt, as we think about this kind of section and taking stock of what's going on, like, what are some of those questions that people really need to think about asking right now?
Well, just to put a little bit of context about where I am and the environment I am, and I like that you said we're all in this together in some way, and we're all at different stages of processing what we're going to do in this situation, right? So I'm based in Orlando, Florida, and because of the tourism trade and because of the large number of people that come and go, um, we have been deep into the stay-at-home mandates even before the state. So it's been, I believe, going on 2.5 weeks now here that we've been locked down. So understanding we're talking to people nationally and internationally, you and your community may be at different spots in this process, but one thing I've watched small businesses do here is, they're concerned about their staff. They're concerned about, like, what if I don't have the staffing that I need? And I'd encourage them, if they're not already thinking about it, looking at their hours, looking at what you can change to accommodate staff being out or staff having trouble getting there. Supply. I think a lot of people are probably going through supply shortages and how do I handle inventory and how do I handle supplies, and I think that's pretty inherent. Work with your suppliers, and I think one thing I'm sure going to touch on, Dave, is making sure we communicate. If we're seeing problems in the supply chain, make sure we're communicating out to our customers and our stakeholders to make sure that they know we're going to be limited on this, or the delivery dates are going to be longer on that, and try to be transparent with supply chain issues. What if you, the business owner, the operator, gets sick? Well, as Dave said first, as stressful as all of this is for everybody, but especially for small business owners and people that run nonprofits, do your best to maintain self-care. But if you can't, make sure you have some people that you've designated to help you with the business, help you with the nonprofit. I have to imagine a lot of people are probably deep into these stages. What if you need to temporarily close? Are there ways you can look after your staff? Are there ways, with limited margins? I know for a fact that a lot of people are struggling to pay their staff. Are there some ways you can reward them, retain them? Is there some way you can keep them going? It may not be monetarily, but at the very minimum, can you help them get assistance throughout whatever your state's doing or whatever we're doing federally? What if this lasts a long time?
Yeah.
That's the one I think we all pray that it won't, right? But I think it'd be wise to think about long-term plans. I mean, personally, here in Orlando, our city leaders have been telling us to start looking at summertime. That we're going to be in this situation for a while. I know personally, just running the house with my wife, we've kind of got the mindset that we're going to be in this through at least June or July. And so being realistic and paying attention to what the CDC and government agencies are saying is important. But I think it's also important to not be too much of a downer, to maybe throw some sunshine on it. Also start to think about what you're going to do to capitalize, and maybe that's too strong a word in this environment, but think about what you're going to do as things start to improve, and what are going to be the steps that you're going to take to make sure you're staffed up, to make sure that those inventory blockages, you can mitigate those. Like, you do want to be thinking about, when the storm passes, what are you going to do when the sun comes out, right?
Yeah. Matt, thank you for that. And you mentioned that idea of, staying on the positive side. And one of the things that I think is interesting too during this time is, one of the things that we always hear from small business owners all the time and small businesses is that when it comes to all of this marketing stuff, or just even putting up a website and doing those types of things, right? There's just no time to do that. And many people may find themselves in a situation where they do have some more time on their hands. And I think it's a great time to start thinking about them. What can I do, right? Because small business owners I talk to don't like to be sitting around doing nothing, right? And so what is it that you can do now to set yourself up for the future like that. So, Jenna, I wanted to turn to you for a moment because one of the things that we did not mention was the fact that actually your family owns a restaurant that is, I think, what, in a couple of years in right now, and is obviously impacted by what's happening right now. And maybe would you mind sharing a bit about, your family business and kind of what you guys have been going through kind of during this phase of the what ifs and kind of taking stock of the situation?
Yeah. My family owns a restaurant brewery. And so it's family owned and operated. My mom is the owner, my dad does the brewing, my brother's the chef, and I, of course, do the marketing. So, and of course, we have a family of employees that, we consider family and that are very, very close to us. So, I mean, all of those questions that Matt said, as soon as we heard that restaurants, or at least dine-in experiences, were closed down, it was like this rush of just sheer panic. And what do we do? How do we take care of ourselves? But how do we take care of all of the people that we employ and their families? And so it was a couple of days of tears and like I said, panic and fear, and just like, how are we going to get through this? And then it was kind of, okay, survival mode kicked in. And especially me being somebody who works in marketing for a marketing company, it was like, all right, we gotta act quick. And so I mean, it's really been a day by day process of us just trying to get creative, and us trying to, what went well today, what went bad. We've had to really kind of reinvent ourselves and go back to square one and say, if we were a brand new business, and this is kind of going to Matt's point of how long is this going to last?
Yeah.
How can we sustain our business in this kind of model, right? And how do we do that long term? Because we don't know how long this is going to happen. And so it's really been a joint effort of just day by day seeing what works, what doesn't, and really making sure that we are in communication with our patrons, making sure that they feel safe to dine with us, that we're offering things that they need during this time, and trying to just think of us as a new and different business. So it's been interesting, to say the least. We have some really, really good days and some really, really bad days. And it's, we're waiting for that moment when we just feel like, okay, we're good and we're coasting with what we've got. But that's probably not going to happen. We know that. So it's, like I said, it's just really kind of coming together within our family, within our staff and employees, and with our customers and our patrons.
Yeah. Yeah. So Jenna, I mean, you're talking, of course, about, looking at like this is kind of the new normal for now. And as you're thinking through that and changing, what you need to do, and obviously we're all figuring out ways to adapt. And I want to go to you, like, what is that like? How have you had to adapt? Like, what things are you doing?
So the very, very first thing that I knew we needed to change was our website.
Mhm.
So we had a website before, it was good, but we had a lot of information on there. It was very convoluted. There were a lot of different landing pages, and it was hard to find what we needed, or it was hard to find what people were looking for.
Right. Yeah.
And so we went back to that and said, okay, this is the very, very first thing that we need to change, and to make sure that people were able to get the information they needed quickly. And so it was doing a lot of organization with that. It was making sure that we were on all of our listings and reviews sites, making sure that our services were updated, that our hours were now updated, that we're just doing everything we can to get the information to our customers as quickly as possible, because
Mhm.
everybody else is going through a crisis too, right? Not just us. So it's, how do we make it easier for them, and make their lives easier to get what they need as well. So those were the first things that we did, was just to make sure that our online presence was made known and in a way that was easily accessible.
Yeah. And just day-to-day operations, I mean, you guys are, I mean, are you doing delivery, like pickup? Like, how is that all working?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm in Colorado, so I don't know how it's going in other states. I know that we are able to do curbside takeout, online ordering, delivery services. You can now do to go alcohol even, and so there are obviously regulations around that. But that's part of communicating to your customers too, like around not just restaurants, but your business. Are there different regulations? Are there different guidelines that you have to adhere by? And just making sure that you're communicating those clearly too. I think that's been really important. People have come to us as a source of like, hey, what are the rules now? And I'm sure a lot of other businesses are experiencing that too. So the more that you can stay informed about guidelines, what the CDC is changing day by day, the more that you're not just a source of, like for us, in this example, we're a source of food, but it's a source of information, and we're somebody that a business that our community can trust. So
Yeah.
that's been really important too.
So Matt, obviously we're thinking through like how are we adapting, right? Like how are we starting to kind of generate these solutions for the situation that we're in, and obviously work from home is one of those things that ourselves included and other businesses are able to do. But what are some of the other ways that people need to start to think about adapting?
Well, again, and first I wanna give kudos to Jenna for framing something so complex so well. I love the idea of what if this was our business from day one. I think that's a brilliant strategy that she and her
Yeah.
family have adopted, because I think that's where every small business and some nonprofits need to think, right? Like, what if there wasn't in dining? What if there wasn't the physical retail? What if there wasn't this or that or the other? And so that moves into digital. This is not false praise for the small business and nonprofit community. I've been so impressed with the ingenuity that I've seen in the last few weeks, and the way that organizations have pivoted on a dime. But certainly, if it's not been done yet, you want to think through how you can get a digital presence. How can you offer what you offer digitally? If you've been on the fence about jumping into e-commerce, now's the time.
Yeah.
You need to embrace that. And I know we're going to talk about some examples a little bit later, but one of my favorites, I brought this up in one of our meetings, is an organization out of Massachusetts, and it's one of those drink wine and learn how to paint retail type operations. You go in and have a glass of wine, and an instructor teaches you how to paint. Now, if you hear that on the surface, right? Well, how are they going to go digital? Right? How could they have that model work? Well, by doing what Jenna said about thinking about what if this was your business model from day one, they're now offering paint kit delivery. So they'll drop off the kit of paint and your canvas and a bottle of wine. And then you get a series of options to sign up and watch the instructor. And with webcams, you can actually interact with other attendees in that session. And as I thought through that model, I was like, that's brilliant,
Yeah.
because right, they're taking their business. Will it have the same amount of people throughput the business? I don't know. But honestly, in this environment, if I think about me as a consumer right now, having something to distract me and having a bottle of wine, probably not the worst thing in the world right now. So,
Yeah.
really thinking, I mean, I hate to use this overused phrase, but thinking outside of the box, and okay, what are some ways we could deliver even some of what we do online? And certainly, if you don't have an online presence, and if you don't have an e-commerce presence, now's the time to think about that. In the spirit of the paint and wine, I mean, it's also time to think about what you can do that you would have done in person, things like classes. How can you get that online? I think we've probably all seen, thanks to social media, dance studios, gyms, and now, of course, I have two small kids, school. What
Yeah.
can you transfer to an online experience? And you can. It doesn't always have to be for free. There are tools that you could gate that, and so gate your content and make it accessible via pay screen, a paywall.
Yep.
And then I think this one also goes without saying. how can you deliver what you deliver either through no contact delivery or takeout or something of that nature. So, given the nature of both regulations, to Jenna's point about what they're able to do and what they're not able to do, what can you do that can make it easy for people to consume what you're selling or receive what you're doing? And so, can you make it something that you drop off? I've been amazed, is I think not unique to my family. We've tried to support local restaurants in particular at least every third night.
Yeah.
And we've also expanded the breadth of who we order from to try to support as many small businesses as we can. And I've been amazed at how quickly many have adopted their online presence. My local Italian restaurant, it's one of our favorites to go to. They immediately, like Jenna's family did, immediately changed their sites. Just boom, there's the menu. They've synced up with about 3 different delivery services. They also do it themselves, which is really smart because they're able to retain some of their staff that would have been wait staff, back of the house staff, to deliver food. But they also set up a tent outside where people can not only order from the curb, but also pick up their food. And here in Florida, it's pretty hot, so having a tent out on the curb is actually a good idea. If you've been on the fence about taking these actions, I definitely consider, like Jenna said, this is your new business model. How are you going to make it work?
I love that. One of the favorite things I've seen is, again, in the food space here, where a restaurant was offering, you could purchase basically individual meals that they would then send to frontline workers at hospitals. I thought, wow, what a great way to, one, be able to support your small business still, but then also support the people that are out there, doing the things that they need to do to help keep everybody safe. I thought that was also a really great idea to think about and do things during this time. I know my yoga studio is like live streaming their classes now, and they're doing everything they can and using these digital tools to really keep a sense of community that obviously you don't get by visiting the studio anymore. And they're doing everything they can to do those types of things, which I think has been great.
I think what's great about that too, Dave, is that it's finding a way to support a small business, support frontline first responders, hospital workers, but not ask the small business to give away something for free. And I think
Right.
that's,
Yeah.
and that can be shared amongst all industries here is how can, how can we keep costs low, right? And how do we supply, like Matt was saying before, but also give back, but not have to take the hit financially for that.
Yeah.
That's been a challenge, but I think it's people, like Matt said, they've been very creative in ways that they can do that, and I've been really impressed with people stepping up to help their community with that.
Yeah.
Dave, can I touch on that as well?
Absolutely.
Because that story of the restaurant, and I've seen several models where they're doing that, of donating. Well, they're not donating food. You buy the food and they'll deliver it to the first responders and the medical staff. But I want to take a different tangent on this thought, because I think we're all seeing what our medical community and the frontline workers are going through right now, and I cannot imagine it doesn't pull at everybody that's watching and listening. It pulls at your heartstrings, right? So there's several layers of things in that story to think through. Now, do I suggest everybody on this call today go out and do the same thing? Well, some of your business models won't even allow you to do it. But what I love about that model is it's checking off a couple of boxes. And to Jenna's point, first of all, it's still charging somebody for a service, so it's keeping the lights on, right? Two, it's rewarding people that are in a bad place right now. But and this is the part where I don't want to seem like a marketer, but I am. All right, so we have to think a little bit about when the storm passes, right? And one thing I encourage everybody to think about, now we're talking long play here. This is a long game, all right? I don't think you'll see immediate benefits other than just getting that order and helping those people or doing whatever it is you decide to do. But staying top of mind is critical to being a success in marketing, right? You want people to think of you before they think of somebody else. And, if you're showing compassion and doing good work in your community, and you're keeping the lights on, and you're paying your staff, and you're providing a valuable service, well, that's just smart marketing, right? That's just smart marketing, because when hopefully this all ends and things get back to some semblance of normalcy, that small gesture may pay off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And we kind of have to think a little bit that way. I don't, again, want to seem like a jaded marketer, but we want to think about our brand reputation. We want to think about our brand identity. We want to think about staying top of mind, and things like the restaurant we talked about earlier, donating or selling food to, or delivering food to first responders and to medical staff, is very smart. One thing I've always encouraged small businesses to do is collaborate with a nonprofit. There's very similar dividends in doing that, because right now, as you can imagine, and I have to imagine we have some nonprofits on the call today, nonprofits have very, very thin margins. They have some of the most thin. And so they're in desperate need to provide services that your community probably needs right now too. So there may have never been a more apt and perfect, if I can use that word, opportunity for-profits and nonprofits to collaborate to help their community and help each other. And that fits into that staying on top of mind philosophy as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see a question about, and it kind of lends itself to what you're saying, Matt. So that's kind of why I wanted to point it out. But it's saying, how do you support other small businesses without it affecting your revenue or donations? And one thing that I've seen people do that's been really successful is almost like a co-promotion, right? So if, for example, there was a local chiropractor's office that came in, purchased 10 gift cards worth $10, right? So they're supporting our business, bringing us revenue. What that's going to do later is somebody brings in a $10 gift card. Our average bill is, say, $30, $40. So we're getting that immediate revenue for a gift card then, but then they're giving us $10. Well, then they have to also spend another $20 to $30 more in the future. And so you're sustaining your business that way. But then what we can do to help promote them is to, they are promoting it as a giveaway, right? So, hey, we bought these gift cards from this restaurant or this business. We're giving it away. Well, as a business, we can promote their giveaway. So we're giving them that co-promotion as well. So I think you can work in partnership with other businesses like that, specifically for gift cards or merchandise or things like that.
Yeah. So, guys, I want to move us into really answering some of these questions here, because I see those coming through, and and we touched on, I think, what's important, and Jenna, you touched on this a bit about, like, one of the first things that you started to do is thinking about the ways that you can communicate with customers. And I think in this period of time, when we talk about marketing, it is really about communicating, is really what that is, communicating to people that are interested in the message or are ready to receive that message. And I think, one of the big things that we all need to think about is, like, how do we communicate during this time? I'm going to mention that hopefully somebody can share a link out to, so we wrote a post recently about, like, how to communicate sensitively during these times, and just to have that added thing to think about as you're thinking about all the places that, one, reviewing communications that you may have scheduled to go out, right? Do those still make sense? And, doing things like updating your websites and your listings, like you had mentioned, and all of that. So I'm going to go into questions here. So let me take a look here and see what we can grab. So here's a question from Holly. And Holly says, we had to cancel a festival and exhibit due to coronavirus. How much marketing is it appropriate for a nonprofit to do right now? Is it good to help our vendors and artists, or is it asking too much of the audience? Both events were free to enter, but the artists and vendors are losing money since the events are canceled. What do you guys think about that?
I think people are wanting to help in any way, shape, or form that they can right now. I don't think it's out of the question to ask people. So I've seen people putting up GoFundMe pages, setting up Venmo accounts that they can then distribute, allocate those dollars to the vendors and the artists. There's one of our partners at Constant Contact. She runs pop-up markets with curated jewelry makers, designers. So they're an events-based business as well. They have these pop-up markets and they've had to cancel those. What they've been doing is they've been promoting their artists. Each day they say, hey, this is somebody who would have been at our event. This is what they provide, what kind of products they provide. Go and shop online to them. So there are still ways that you can support without asking for money, but you can, again, kind of promote those artists and what they're doing and push people to their websites or their online stores. So I don't say it's out of the question at all.
And I think we've probably all been have seen these virtual events occur as well. And one thing you may want to consider, Holly, is how much can you do with Zoom or another tool to have the, I'm assuming when you say artists, it could be musicians, it could be graphic artists, but how much can you do a virtual event? How feasible is that without, obviously you can't have everybody in the same room, but can you do something with multi-window Zoom and kind of bringing everybody together? Because I mean, one thing, if you're in the artists and entertainment space, you need to think about, if you're not thinking about it already, is I'm fortunate enough, I work till 5 o'clock, but right after 5 o'clock, I'm ready to just turn off the world. And if you can bring some light into folks' lives, I mean, given that you said it was a free event, you might want to even think of and I'm going to use this with the lowercase t, a telethon type model. Obviously, I think you hear telethons, you hear, big schmaltzy production, but just hosting a free event through Zoom or a similar tool where, each artist either talks about their art, or if it's a musician, they perform, and you constantly, as your host, going to jump in and say, here's a way that you can support them. Here's a GoFundMe link, or make sure you go to their website. And the benefit there is you're going to help those vendors, you're going to help those artisans and those musicians. But again, coming back to the jaded marketer, one day the sun's going to shine, and people remember what you've done for them.
Yeah. I love the tips that people are giving, and I think it's just really looking at these things just a little bit differently. And I think, yes, it's appropriate. I think people are looking for this distraction right now. Like, I don't think it's asking too much for people to come to these types of things. And I think the best you can do to keep that kind of going is the way to look at it, for sure. So I have another question here from Nancy, and this kind of actually flows into this, but what if we're afraid no one wants to hear from us as they're dealing with coronavirus themselves?
We're all going through the same thing, Nancy. Everybody is, right? I mean, I think there's two sides to that. I know that my inbox and my social media is full of, information. It seems to be constant. But we're all going through the same thing. And I think, your question doesn't mention what industry you're in or what you're doing, Nancy. But one thing I'd encourage businesses and nonprofits that may have nothing to particularly useful in this crisis is share positivity, share uplifting stories. Share, if you see a small business that's struggling and you want to partner with them, partner with them. That kind of information is, in this kind of day, very useful and much needed. People want to, I mean, we touched on this the other day, Dave and Jenna. It's amazing how all of a sudden I want to communicate with everybody. Like, I'm calling and Skyping and doing chat with people I haven't talked to in years. And I think it's a very human nature thing. We're all looking for reassurance and some sense of normalcy. And if you can bring that through your email communication, through your social media, through your website, through video, I think it will be warmly received.
I think it's all about, right now, your message should not be about trying to push your services or your products or selling. It's about reconnecting with your audience. And there are some questions in here like, okay, well, I should be communicating. Okay, I get it. But like, especially for closed, what do I have to communicate about? This is a chance for you to reconnect with your audience, to position yourself as an expert, share expertise that you have, tips, education, again, trying to make it aware to your audience that you know what's going on, but you're still a source of education and helpful tips for them. People have needs right now. They have problems that need to be solved. So
Yeah.
how can you do that? And I think that's what your content needs to be about versus, you know, trying to sell something when you're not even open. So I
Yeah.
think again, it's connecting with your audience, knowing, making sure that they know that you're still an expert, you're still a resource and a solution for them.
Yeah.
I
I think
actually saw a great example of that right before we got on the call. Sorry, Dave.
no, go ahead.
And granted, this is a small business and nonprofit audience, but I'll bring up a big box retailer because I thought what they did was following exactly what Jenna said. It's IKEA, and with IKEA, obviously they have deep pockets and they have marketing experts and they have a lot of advantages. But the email I got was very, and I'm gonna use the word clever, but I don't mean it as sneaky. They had cooking tips, they had housekeeping tips, they had house cleaning tips, they had
Yeah.
all sorts of tips and advice, knowing that their audience is likely stuck at home, knowing that their audience is likely not pulling out the pocketbook and buying a big sofa right now, right? But what was clever about it is that it always had pictures of their products related to, hey, here's a recipe, and look
Yeah.
at the IKEA kitchen, right? It was a very clever piece of marketing because the recipe I ended up getting looked pretty good. I'm going to try it, and it kept IKEA top of mind, and it was useful information.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you both bring up a good point about this idea of content right now. And again, content, one of those things you typically don't have the bandwidth to always be producing, but it's really what fuels a lot of your marketing and a lot of what happens in the world today, particularly online. And I think it's about really thinking through what are the things that are right to come from your business based on the nature of your business, that how can you help with the new reality that your audience is going through, like, and how can you provide those things? The example you just gave made me think of I know a couple of things, like my barber shop. Like, obviously I'm not going to the barber anytime soon, but they're sending out a newsletter called the Herald, right? And they have these little videos in there where they're showing people how to give themselves a trim while they're at home and can't go get a haircut, right? And like,
Can you
so
forward
how
that
do
to
you
me?
use them?
That space, you're like, don't do
Exactly, right?
it.
Please.
Right, I know. No, Matt's like, please, I need it. But and they're fun too, right? And I think it's okay. Like, people want to have that kind of relief, right? And that break from all the news that's hitting us and all of that. And so, like, just think of some ways, be creative, and think of some ways that you can connect with people. And I think that's ultimately what this is about right now. And so that leads me to my next question. I hope this doesn't sound crass, which is how Amira, I hope I said that right. And how do you support other small businesses without it affecting your revenue or donations?
Yeah, I would say, just kind of as I mentioned before, I would partner with other, everybody's hurting right now. So if you can partner together on a project, if you can feature other small businesses because I always say, you could like a business, but you're not going to shop there or eat there every single day for every single meal or for every single need, right? So share the love, especially right now. It's, okay, we're a restaurant, right? So people aren't going to eat with us every single meal of every single day, but when they're not with us, who do I want them to support and be able to promote those other businesses? That's for free, right? And again, what you're doing is you're showing that you're partnering with people in the community, that you're in this to win it. You're not going down without a fight. And you're strengthening the relationships that you have with other businesses. They will return that back to you if you're doing that for them. So I think that's really, really important, to build some sort of alliance with your neighboring businesses and work together on that.
And also think through what makes sense for your consumer. So you want to think about businesses that you're not competing with, that would, with what you do and with what they do, somebody would really want to call that in. They definitely want to, it's bundling. You take two things that usually go together. How can they fit and be delivered in a way that's useful to your common consumers? And and a point of the revenue. Well, if you collaborate and you build an online presence, an online store where you're actually bundling these things together, you're both taking a piece of that combined offering. And another reason why that is a very smart strategy is you're also amplifying your megaphone. If they're not competitors, right? We're not even talking about the same industry. If they're not competitors, well, now you have two Facebook groups talking about this. You have two Twitter accounts. You have two Constant Contact email accounts talking about it. You have two websites. Like, you're expanding your megaphone and you're collaborating. So you're bringing new audiences to each other. I would collaborate in as many ways as I possibly could right now.
Yeah, and I think just to add, right, like what we're talking about, and a lot of what we're saying here are things that are really things you should be doing regardless of the situation, right? Or things that are very helpful and beneficial to your business from a marketing perspective. It's just now you've got this heightened sense of urgency around it, right? Which I think in some ways is good because it's pushing you to kind of think this way and do these things. But these are all things that are just great for your business on a normal day, right? And so think about it like that. Amira also asks, how do you keep instructors of an educational institution as engaged when they move online? And I want to talk to this first because it's funny because my wife is actually teaches at the college level, and a lot of this stuff is she's going through a lot of this right now, and she's looking for ways to stay connected with her students, but also just like with the rest of the faculty and things like that as well. And I know one of the things that we've been doing here just with our small team is we've been making sure that every day we have a check-in, right? Just like a 15-minute thing. Sometimes it goes longer, sometimes it doesn't, but there's something about keeping people connected that keeps you engaged, right? Because I think it's easy to sit at home and be in your sweats all day and maybe lean towards that path of like, I'm not going to do anything. But on the other sense, if you have like, there's this thing that's coming up that I have to be at and I have to check in with people, one, it gives you that ability to check in with people, but also kind of keeps you engaged in that process. And so think about the ways that you can have the regular, just quick check in with everybody and make sure everybody's doing okay. And we're all kind of going through this together. Like even in that, like we're trying to figure out, like all of a sudden you need to figure out how to use this tool, right? How to do this thing. And it can be, troublesome in some instances, right? And so the best you can do to keep people learning from each other and thinking through how they can do things together, I think helps keep people engaged in that process as they're moving online. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
I like that you said we're all doing this. We're all having to, those of us that are fortunate enough to be able to work from home. I think, and I don't mean to put Constant Contact situation is any different from anybody else's, but I mean, you do need to trust your instructors, and you need to, if you've gone remote as an organization, you need to put some trust in there, because it's going to be the same kind of trust that you'd have that in her case in an instructor in front of a class. I think Jenna and I have a unique perspective, and Dave, you do too. We have been online instructors for 10 years in various sorts, and ultimately, I know that as a facilitator and trainer, I'm most passionate about getting the results. I don't care if it's in person. I don't care if it's through a podcast in my voice. I don't care if it's interacting through a camera like this. I want to help whomever I'm instructing to achieve the results that they're trying to achieve. And so hopefully just trusting your instructors and your staff, if there's other people that are remote, to do the right thing. And to Dave's point, have regular meetings, talk to people, and you'll make it through it.
Yeah, I mean, for me as an instructor online, I don't like to just talk at people. I mean, we're kind of doing that right now, but it's fun because it's three of us and we're interacting and it's a conversation. I think if you're trying to look to engage your instructors, make it interactive for them too, not just for the students or the participants. And because nobody likes to just stand there or sit there and talk at people. It's having a conversation. Again, it's about connecting and building relationships, and I think as much as you can tap into that, that's important for them too.
Yeah. Here's a question from Bill. Bill, let's see, asks, our company Gift Baskets for Europe is in the business of delivering gifts on behalf of clients to recipients throughout Europe. A couple of questions all in one. We have a coronavirus update page on our site where we tell our clients what we're doing and wonder if we should have it at all. We did simplify our categories and offerings and are now doing some gifts with staple food items. So the question here is, should we identify these specific gifts as such? We sure don't want to make it look like care packages. What do you guys think? I'll jump in first, Phil.
I have a lot of thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I think definitely, like, yes, you should have the coronavirus update page, or at least that information front and center, right? Like, I think, even if you're just looking for things or you're wondering, like, what is going on, and if you're not updating those sites, like, one of the things I love about what you guys did on your site, Jenna, is like, yes, that information is right there front and center. Here's what's happening right now. And so when you get to the site, there's no second guessing, because a lot of times people have questions when they're coming to your site, and immediate question I'm going to have as a potential customer is, are you even in business right now? Like, is this happening? Right? Like, can I even still do this? And so to be able to get that information to me quickly and right away is important. And I get the idea of, like, not making it look like care packages, but I guess, I mean, that's what it is, right? Like, at this point, like, I actually feel like that's okay, right? And I think you should.
I think it's actually smart right now.
Yeah, you should call them out as, like, these are things for you to be able to send to somebody, and be able to help them with this time where someone may not be able to get out of the house and do those types of things. So I think that's not a bad idea at all.
If you have access to things that other people don't, I've seen a lot of, not our restaurant, but I've seen a lot of restaurants, we have access to ordering things in bulk, including sanitation products, including toilet paper. So some restaurants, I've seen them almost start to do almost like a market, right? Like, place an order with us, what you need by Friday, we'll have it ready for you by Sunday, whether that's a dozen eggs or a pound of flour or rolls of toilet paper, right? What do you have access to that your customers do not? And again, it's thinking about their needs and the problems that they're having, and how can you use what you have and your resources to provide a solution for it. And I mean, that goes back to the first thing I said of rethinking your business model right now. Like, if this is your new business model, what could you be, right? And how would that work? It's you have to think in terms of, like, the right here and the right now, and how that's going to lend itself to the future too. So be resourceful. And I don't think that that's a bad thing at all. I think people love the idea of, I love the idea of a gift basket. I think, again, can you partner with somebody else in your community or another business that they can provide something to put into the gift basket too, right? So, partner up and be resourceful, get creative.
There's a throughput here that I want to touch on really quickly with Bill, and I think this is a spirit of his question to a certain extent, which is confusing the market, right? So I wonder if he's concerned that by offering gift baskets versus care packages, maybe once we're past this, will people be confused? I don't know that that's necessarily what he was asking, but I do think it's something that may be on the minds of people is, oh, if I start offering this with a collaborating company, and I start doing this with a nonprofit, and I start adding that and that, well, that just confused the marketplace. Look, the world's upside down right now. I think as long as you're clear in your communications that this is a special offer, or this is something we're doing unique to this crisis, people are smart. Like, they're going to understand your resourcefulness. They're going to respect what you're offering. I love Jenna's point of, like, if you're doing care packages, I mean, that's something I'm surprised I haven't seen more of, is with companies combining to bring a box of stuff you need right now. Now, not necessarily disinfectants and cleaners, but collaborating in a gift basket form is not the worst idea right now.
I mean, you're seeing corporations do this. I've seen, I don't remember what company it was, but I think it was some sort of perfume manufacturing factory turn it into a place where they can make hand sanitizer, right?
Right.
I know Joann's Fabrics, they're doing some sort of donation program where they have, I'm sorry, it's not a donation program, it's a mask kit. So if you want to make your own mask at home, you can go in and buy kits to do that, right? So like people from small businesses all the way to multi-million dollar companies, they're reinventing themselves too. And whether
Yeah.
that's temporary or long term, that's for you to decide, but that's okay if what you're doing right now is different than what you were doing before.
So we have limited time left here. We only have a couple of minutes left, and we have a handful of questions, and I want to try to get as to many of them as we can. So if we can try to maybe keep the questions shorter or the answers a little bit shorter here. But here's a question from Katie, and Katie asks, I know cold calling or sending emails to leads may not be the best in this time, but is it insensitive to telemarket or digitally market services and products during this time to current clients to try to cross-sell or upsell them?
I think it's in how you approach it, and it's all about what you say and how you say it, right? So if it's coming off as cross-selling or trying to upgrade them or something, I feel like, yes, that might be a little, I wouldn't say insensitive, just maybe not the appropriate time. But if you are seeing a need for your clients,
Mhm.
right, and they are having issues or problems, and you're providing a solution for that, if you're there as a support system and as a resource, I think that's when it's not insensitive to do that. I mean, you have a business to run too, so you know, just it's all in the way that you say it.
Here's an interesting question from Patrick. How often do you send emails when you are not open? Looks like they have a golf course, and if so, what information? I'm going to jump on this quick if you don't mind. This is this thing where I really think talking about content, right? And so how often is always up for debate, and it really depends on your audience. But I'm thinking of a situation where, oh, the weekend comes around, maybe it's a once a weekly or every other week or something like that. But it's a great opportunity to start thinking about like, hey, here's how you can do some golf stuff out in the backyard, right? Like, here's a way to set up a putting range in your home, right? Like some simple things like that that could be fun and keep people engaged with the sport itself could be a great way that you keep your your golf course and your business in front of people while providing them some things and activities to do that would be fun ways to do that through content. So that there's something that I would think about there.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah.
I know we're moving it fast, but you just touched a nerve with what you said, and I think it's appropriate for everybody to think through it. I mean, I'm going to use the golf course as an example, but this may be true in all of your industries, which is also look beyond. I mean, not just golf tips in your backyard, but a golf club also knows how to keep greens green, right? They have landscapers, they have vendors, they have connections, and look to those people for education. It doesn't just have to be you. So just look at your entire world. What would be informational and useful to people right now? It may not be your voice. It may be a voice you're connected to, but think through like, okay, who do I know who knows something that's going to be useful in this situation? I'm closed, but I want to still keep people engaged. How can I do that?
Yeah. So it looks like we're at the top of the hour here, actually 1 minute over. I want to thank everyone that kind of stayed on the line with us. Again, thank you to both Matthew and Jenna for spending some time with us here today. We'd really love to know if this was helpful to you. So on your way out, you will actually get a survey. So please let us know if this information was helpful, what you need more of, that type of stuff. Again, just to kind of summarize some of the things that we talked about here, really, right, take stock of your situation, start thinking about the ideas or generating solutions for where you are at this particular moment, and then think about the ways that you can actually start putting some plans into action and doing things during this time. It is okay to be marketing your businesses. It is okay to be communicating with people. You just want to make sure that you're doing that in a smart and sensitive way. I know there are about a handful of questions that we weren't able to get to. Typically in our community, we'll post some information with answers to those questions. So if you want to check that out, please be sure to check out the Small Business Support Kit and see the things that we're offering there for you. Hopefully it's resources that you'll find valuable. Again, like I mentioned, to let us know if this conversation was helpful to you. And friends, be safe, be nimble, and be bold. We hope to see you again soon. Bye-bye now.